Two faces, one friend. Sarah and Lila were two girls from the same school. They were both 10 years old. Sarah lived in a nice house and wore pretty clothes. She smiled often and many people liked her. She seemed kind and fun. At school she always had something to say. Lila was quiet. She had soft brown eyes and a gentle smile. She did not talk much, but she helped everyone. She helped the teacher carry books. She shared her lunch with hungry classmates. People liked Lila because she was kind, not loud. One day, a girl from their class invited both of them to play. She thought they could be good friends. Lila brought cookies she had made with her mom. She gave them to everyone with a smile. Sarah smiled too and said thank you, but her smile was not real. When Lila turned away, Sarah whispered, "These taste bad." She rolled her eyes. Another girl heard her and looked surprised. Lila heard too, but she said nothing. She kept smiling and gave more cookies to the others. That night, the girl who watched them felt confused. Sarah looked friendly, but her words were not kind. Lila was quiet, but her heart was good. Something didn't feel right. Something about Sarah was not what it seemed. The next day at school, Lila sat alone. She was drawing flowers in her notebook. She looked peaceful, but a little sad. Sarah walked by and said, "Nice drawing," but her voice didn't sound kind. Then she turned to her friends and laughed. They laughed too, but Lila stayed quiet. At lunch, Lila tried to sit with the other girls. Sarah quickly put her bag on the empty seat. "Sorry, it's taken," she said with a smile. The others followed her lead. Lila walked away slowly and sat at a table by herself. She ate her food quietly and looked out the window. One teacher noticed and asked, "Is everything okay, Lila?" Lila nodded and smiled, but her eyes looked tired. The teacher watched her for a moment, then walked away. No one really saw how Lila felt inside. She was good at hiding her pain. After school, Sarah told a group of girls that Lila was boring. She said, "She always tries to be perfect. It's annoying." The girls laughed again. One of them asked, "But didn't she bring cookies yesterday?" Sarah rolled her eyes and said, "Yes, but that doesn't make her special." Lila heard them, but she said nothing. She just walked home with her books in her arms. She didn't cry, she didn't speak, but her steps were slow, her heart was heavy, and her smile was gone. The next morning, Lila came to school early. She sat in the library before class started. She read a book about friendship. Her eyes moved slowly over the words. Her face was calm, but there was sadness in her heart. She wished someone truly cared. Later that day, the school had a group activity. The teacher said, "You will work in teams of 3. Lila was in a team with Sarah and another girl named Emma. Lila smiled and said, "Let's do our best." Emma smiled back. Sarah just nodded and looked away. During the activity, Lila had many ideas. She spoke kindly and worked hard. Emma was happy to help, but Sarah didn't listen. She whispered to Emma, "Lila always wants to be the leader." Emma looked at Sarah, surprised. "She's just trying to help," she said. When the teacher came to check, their group did well. The teacher smiled and said, "Good job, girls." Lila smiled too. For a moment she felt proud. But after the teacher left, Sarah said, "She only praised us because of me." Lila looked down at her notebook. Her smile faded again. That evening, Lila walked home slowly. She passed by Sarah's house. Sarah was outside with other girls. They were laughing loudly. When they saw Lila, they stopped. Sarah waved and said, "Hi," but the other girls looked away. Lila gave a small wave back and kept walking. Deep inside, she knew the truth. One day, there was a school event. Parents were invited to see the students' projects. Lila worked hard on her poster. She drew, coloured, and wrote carefully. Her project was about kindness. She wrote, "Kindness is quiet but strong." Her mother helped her carry it to school. Sarah also made a project. It was bright and full of glitter. She talked loudly and told everyone to come see it. People clapped and said it looked nice. Sarah smiled and took all the attention. Lila stood near her own project, waiting. Not many people came. But then one teacher stopped at Lila's table. She read the words and looked at the drawings. She smiled and said, "This is beautiful. It comes from the heart." Lila looked up and smiled softly. For the first time that week, she felt seen. Later, some classmates also came. One boy said, "I like your poster." A girl added, "It made me feel warm inside." Lila said, "Thank you," in her gentle voice. Her eyes were bright. She felt a little hope. Sarah saw this from far away. Her smile slowly changed. She watched Lila talking to others. She turned to her friend and said, "I think Lila wants to look perfect again." But her friend didn't laugh this time. She stayed quiet. She kept watching Lila too. The next day something changed. One of Sarah's close friends, Emma, sat next to Lila in class. She said, "Can I sit here?" Lila nodded with a smile. Emma smiled back. They worked together on a small task. They laughed once, softly. It felt nice. Sarah saw them from across the room. Her eyes narrowed. At lunch, she asked Emma, "Why did you sit with her?" Emma said, "She's kind. I wanted to." Sarah frowned and said, "You're my friend, not hers." Emma looked away and said nothing. More students began to notice Lila. They remembered her kindness, her soft words, her calm help. One girl said, "She helped me with my homework." Another boy said, "She gave me her snack once." Slowly, students began to greet Lila more often. Sarah didn't like it. She tried to speak louder, to make more jokes, to take back all the attention. But something was different now. The others smiled at Lila too. They didn't laugh at Sarah's mean words anymore. They just stayed quiet or walked away. At the end of the day, Lila found a note in her bag. It said, "You are a good person. I'm sorry I didn't see it before." There was no name, but Lila smiled. Her heart felt warm. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. The next morning, Lila walked into school with a light heart. She smiled at the teacher, at the students, at everyone. People smiled back. Emma waved and walked with her to class. Lila felt safe, like she belonged. Sarah sat alone in the corner. No one laughed at her jokes today. No one followed her like before. She looked around and saw Lila talking with others. She felt something heavy inside, something like sadness or maybe regret. At break time, Sarah walked to Lila. She stood still for a moment, then said, "Can we talk?" Lila looked up. She didn't smile, but she nodded. Sarah said softly, "I was not nice to you. I was jealous. I thought people liked you more. I'm sorry." Lila listened. Her eyes were calm. She said, "Thank you for telling me. I hope you will be kind from now on." Sarah nodded. She looked down. She knew Lila had something she didn't. Real kindness. Not the loud kind, but the strong kind. From that day on, things changed. Lila had more friends, not because she was loud, but because she was true. Sarah tried to be better too. She still made mistakes, but slowly she learned. And in that small school, people learned one big thing: kindness always wins.